Today's Faceoff on Fox Soul. Challengers Quan LX and Big Angry Adams. Ready to go blow by blow on those hot topics. Faceoff on Fox Soul starts right now.
Migrants suspected of being gang members have been deported from the US to a supermax prison in El Salvador. A US federal judge has now ruled that similar deportations under the Alien Enemies Act, which dates back to the 18th century, should be blocked. But according to the White House, the removal from the US had already taken place before that ruling. US Secretary of State Marco Rubio spoke about the move on Sunday in an interview with our US news partner CBS.
We want to get rid of Tren de Agua gang members. They're terrorists too. The president designated them, asked me to designate, and I did, as a terrorist organization. We want to get rid of them as well. We don't want terrorists in America. I don't know how hard that is to understand. We don't want people in our country that are going to be committing crimes and undermining our national security or the public safety.
In this round, here's Charles Big Angry Adams.
Quanell, there's a lot of press attention and social media attention to the decision of the Trump administration to put a number of Tren de Agua gang members or alleged Tren de Agua gang members who were quote-unquote asylees from Venezuela onto planes and shipped them to El Salvador. Before 2022, with the confirmation of El Salvador's current president, Bukele, El Salvador was one of the murder capitals of the world and one of the most violent, crime-ridden nations on the planet, anywhere. Bukele came in. It is estimated that he has tripled the prison population. There's about 110,000 people in El Salvador prisons now, and the very worst ones are stored in Secot, a supermax prison, where they are never allowed to go outside, they are never allowed to socialize, there's no training programs, and it does seem incredibly brutal. And it is Bukele's position that the people that are in that prison will never return to their communities because of their horrifying crimes. Now, the fear with that kind of stuff is the opportunity for innocent people to be caught up in this net. The hope is that they are being reserved for the worst possible offenders in a nation where the regular citizens live lives of sheer terror, right? Which they don't anymore. It has changed everything about El Salvador. Now here, we hear about terrorism when it happens at the Boston Marathon, when we have a giant event like 9/11, when we have people that target our leaders or the very wealthy. We don't hear about the everyday terrorism that so many people in our communities of color, our impoverished communities, endure every single day by law enforcement that does not put in the work because they see those communities as less than, by a government that sees their everyday oppression by crime as a part of their existence that they should just deal with. But more importantly, in the last decade, especially during the Biden administration, we've seen a tidal wave of illegal entrants, with a great number of them changing what was historically immigrants were a much more law-abiding population than the average citizen. For decades, this was true. People came to America to grasp at the brass ring of Americanism and to be successful from countries where they didn't have that economic opportunity. Now we have crime tourism. Now we have people that are coming to America and moving to sanctuary cities where you have Soros elected, and I know that he's the boogeyman, but it's true, district attorneys who do not think that law-abiding poor people deserve justice. And all we hear, like we just heard from Mayor Johnson in Chicago after a tourist was shot walking down the street outside of a theater, we hear this, oh, crime is down, crime is down, crime is down nonsense, when the truth is violent crime is up over 60% since 2019. There are some early reports that it has been scaled back in 2024, but that's identical to the reports in 2023 that were then reversed 7 months later by the FBI because the Biden administration changed reporting numbers. So here, people can be mad, but these are not citizens. If they're actually members of Tren de Agua, which has taken over apartment complexes, remember us being lied and told they didn't, raping children, killing people, threatening people, almost exclusively people of color in this country that deserve to live safely. Hey, great, get them out of the country.
I want to warn black people in America I want to warn black mothers, black fathers, Mexican and Latino brothers and sisters in America. They are coming after your children. What Donald Trump is doing is applauding what is happening in El Salvador. But what Donald Trump is not telling, nor the Trump administration is telling, these are alleged gang members who were quote unquote seeking asylum in America. They did not receive their day in court. They suspended due process. There's not even any proof that's been presented in any courtroom to any judge that all of these men that have been taken off the streets of America and illegally sent back had even committed a crime. There's not even proof that some of these men were even actually a part of this quote-unquote gang coming out of El Salvador. Thirdly, a federal judge ruled that what the Trump administration is doing by deporting these men without due process is illegal and ordered the planes to be turned around. But the Trump administration said, we don't care what any federal judge says. They're labeling the judges now who are trying to protect the Constitution as activist judges. And you let a man like this across from me sit here and say, well, we're getting rid of these gang members and now El Salvador is super safe. Yes, but we're talking about America. And we don't lock people up and suspend due process solely based on an allegation or friendship or simulation. We don't do that. These men deserved due process. But let me tell you what's happening here. Ever since 9/11, they put secret laws on the books that can label gang members in America as domestic terrorists. What Trump is going to do, he's going to use the El Salvador model as the manuscript of what he plans to implement in America. And he's going to go after quote unquote Crips, Bloods, Vice Lords, gangster disciples, and he's going to start picking up mass numbers of young black and brown men in America under the auspices and allegation that they're gang members. Suspend due process. They'll never even have their day in court because he can do it under the current laws that were passed since 9/11 that are on the books. He can do that. Black women, black fathers, Hispanic mothers and fathers. This man has declared war in America, and they are coming after your children. And I'm warning you, pay close attention to what's happening, because the same way they said that these illegal immigrants who are not citizens do not have constitutional protections, well, they can suspend constitutional protections for American citizens also if they label you as a part of a domestic terrorist group. That's exactly what Donald Trump is doing. And what they're going to do is make it look like he's cleaning up crime when it's an excuse to imprison hundreds of thousands of black and brown young men in America. And don't tell me they're not going to do it. Look at this Palestinian activist. They accused this man of being anti-Semitic and leading anti-Semitic protests on campuses in America. Now, because he's quote unquote had a green card but not a real citizen, they arrested him and he's locked away in prison, and they presented no proof to any judge that he committed a crime, that he promoted crimes, that he instructed anyone to participate in a crime. They said he supported a terrorist group in Hamas. But do you know that the United States government has labeled some American organizations as quote unquote terrorist organizations? Look at the Southern Poverty Law Center. They got many black organizations on that list. I'm telling you, Charles, you can applaud this, but they're going so far now, they're doing it to the American people next. And if we are not ready and prepared to protect and defend ourselves, what we see happening to these quote unquote immigrants being shipped back, it's being planned for us.
And that dishonest tirade was exactly why people that have been on the left and Democrats their entire lives, like me, are tuning out the nonsense, right? This was just fear-mongering, scaremongering. The people that were sent to CCOT, right, which is a terrorism confinement center in El Salvador, were already in jail for the most awful crimes.
Not all of them.
Let me finish. Yes, all of them.
Not every one of them. That's not true.
I know when
they got five that they've identified that was out on bond and had not been convicted of a crime.
When I start speaking and you start yelling over me, it's I know when the real lies are coming.
No,
right?
because I don't like white folk like you that don't give a damn about nobody, that don't look like you, and then you are the very people that's punishing people right now in America for doing the same thing that your ancestors did to establish America. The original terrorists, the original gang member, the original criminal in America are white people.
The second way I know that you are just lying through
I'm telling raw truth.
Is when you
your
start
people are the original criminals,
about white
illegal immigrants in America.
And you start spewing racism.
That ain't racism. That's actual
fact. You are
fact.
defending murderers and child molesters who were not citizens, who came to this country and committed horrible
crimes. Not all of them, Charles.
They were all horrible criminals.
They presented no proof that they was even involved in criminal activity.
And they were sent out of the country. Right? And you try to cross streams. You want to talk about Muhammad Khalil, right? And again, someone who was a guest in this country to study, who then was actively and vibrantly promoting Hamas and other terrorist organizations, and we don't have to, as citizens, put up with it. And we don't have to put up with it.
So now no more freedom of speech.
We do not have to, no. That's
so
not
we're
what I'm
putting
saying.
people in jail now for speech.
No, he is being deported for crimes, right?
They presented no proof to any courtroom, any federal judge that he's committed a crime, Charles.
They took over a campus. They terrorized Jewish students.
No, those protesting did. And he tried to facilitate a surrender and a peaceful negotiation to tell the students to leave. Ain't no proof he committed a crime, Charles.
You lie for the worst of the worst.
You white folks are the master liars. Well, you have lied to the whole world to conquer the world and to take control over innocent people who have in their hearts to try to be peaceful with you. But you got a man like Trump that has given you all the excuse to pull the mask off. And that's exactly what you all have done. You ain't fooling nobody. But I'm going to tell men like you and Donald Trump, come after us if you want to.
My concern is the reality that's being endured by law-abiding people of color. Almost exclusively the victims to date of Trinidad have been people of color, black and Latino people. And you don't care about those victims, right?
That's a damn
you would
lie.
rather sit on
I
the
don't
screen.
care about people being put locked up and deported with no proof of a crime.
I get that you are on
Where's
team.
the proof of a crime, Charles?
I get that you are on team child molester, team murderer, and team
Charles,
robber.
hold on, Charles.
I am on team law-abiding.
Your people celebrate child molesters and murderers.
Okay, who are my people?
You celebrate George Washington. You celebrate Thomas Jefferson. You celebrate Andrew Jackson. You celebrate Mr. Amherst, General Amherst. You celebrate all of these legends when these legends were butchers and rapists and killers themselves.
The third thing that you do every single time
I celebrate rapists.
is
you celebrate
when
your founding
talking about
fathers.
Something that is happening right now, right here, you start talking about 300 years ago.
You celebrating Donald Trump. He's a 34-count convicted felon.
Actually,
hell, he's a damn criminal. He should be deported himself. With 34 felony convictions, why he not on one of those planes? Why they don't got him locked up, deport him out of America? He's one of the biggest criminals in American history. Donald Trump with 34 felony convictions is the only president that has ever been felony convicted like that. Why in the hell y'all ain't putting him on a plane?
See, that's what I love.
Yeah, you don't want a black man talking like this to you.
I don't care how you talk to me. You're
just
lying.
I'm telling you straight up.
I mean, the regular long-time listeners, thank y'all for listening and viewing, know that you were a Trumper just 3 months ago, right? And then you started getting attention for standing up against deportations.
I agree with some of the policies.
MAGA-wearing
I agree
Trumper,
with some of the policies he wanted to try to do.
You're like,
but what he's doing right now has gone too far, man. He's gone too far, brother.
So sending child molesters and murderers out of the country is going too far.
You give them due process. You don't suspend due process. And for you to be a former judge and a former criminal defense attorney and you applauding the suspension of due process says a whole lot about white men like you.
Okay, well, I think it should only speak about me as an individual, because I don't think you should define people by mutable characteristics like their skin.
Oh, you champion the Constitution.
You're a racist.
And you champion
and it's okay.
Every man gets due process.
Okay.
Every man deserves his day in court. That's what you swore an oath to.
Okay.
But you sit here and abandon that oath
the
now.
Justice Department, right, which is a bunch of lawyers, have done this, and I think they have followed the proper protocol. When the district judge closed it down, they closed it down, they're taking up in court, they're following due process. What we had, those that weren't following due process actually were these sanctuary cities like Houston and other cities that were refusing to work with the federal system. And then you had Mayorkas, who was the leader of that, the secretary for Joe Biden, also say, hey, yeah, we're just not going to deport violent criminals. Where, in fact, you've seen time and time again in the most far left of states like Massachusetts and California, where people have raped children and killed people and had deportation holds, even under the Biden administration, and just allowed to go out
never should
and
have been
kill
let in.
and hurt people.
Why would they ever let in?
Oh, okay.
If you got a child rape conviction on your record, they're supposed to stop you at the border and turn you around.
Well, see,
if you're a convicted child predator, child sex offender, they're supposed to stop you at the border. But the problem is, Charles, the government has deported men to El Salvador who have not been proven to be a part of the gang, men that have committed no crimes in America, men that have not even participated in criminal activity in America.
No, that's not true.
There's been no proof, Charles.
Okay, you're lying.
Charles,
you're making
we
this
do not suspend due process.
You're on team child molestation.
We do not suspend due process.
They didn't.
Well, why the federal judge said he did?
Well,
and why the federal judge said turn those damn planes back around?
Well, we have a group of activist judges, as you know this, that have tried to thwart Trump's policies all through his first presidency, and at the beginning of this second one, where he has probably done more in the, month and a half he's been president than most presidents do in 4 years. And it might be stuff you disagree with, it might be stuff I disagree with. But what I don't disagree with is getting rid of monsters that have snuck in this country to terrorize poor American citizens, largely of
I'm
color.
all right with that.
No, hold on.
But what about the people who are
Let
innocent
me
that are not
finish.
monsters,
You
Charles?
are the one who's sat here for years saying, hey, no one's illegal on stolen ground. Now
that's a fact.
Now you're saying.
Oh, that's really a fact.
Hold on, but now
that's
you're
an
saying,
absolute fact.
Now you're saying we should have stopped them at the border. You
If
can't
they
reconcile
are
those two
convicted
positions.
child rapists.
Well, how do you
and
know when they're
convicted
just flooding in?
No, you do. You got to investigate.
So you
want to
control the border?
You investigate everyone.
You
yes,
want to
control it
Quanell
and
wants to
protect
control the
it to
border
make sure
now.
that the wrong people don't come in.
Quanell,
But Charles, one thing we do not do.
Okay.
We do not throw due process in the garbage
Well, they
can.
didn't.
That's exactly what they
Absolutely did
and
not.
that's exactly what the federal judge ruled and said that they did. Charles, and whenever we got an administration that's saying, oh, we don't care what these judges say. Charles, America is on the brink of anarchy. America is on the brink of civil unrest in this country. Donald Trump does not have to go about doing it the way that he is doing it. There's a better way to protect the borders, secure the borders, and remove those who are bad actors out of the country. But Charles, to pick up everybody like this and present no proof in a courtroom that they are actually gang members, that they've committed crimes in this country, or were involved in planning crimes in this country. Charles, that's wrong. To take an activist from Palestine who's a student.
He wasn't from Palestine, he was from
Syria. But take an activist who's from the Middle East, Syria, whatever, and he's participating in Palestinian support protests against not evil, but against the bombing of children who are dying in Palestine.
I know you'd rather talk about Muhammad Khalil, but we've already done that. We're talking about Trinidad Aragua. We're talking about child molesters, murderers, and robbers who actually did commit crimes.
Those
and you sat on this show
gang members,
and you tried to
those alleged gang members
they're not alleged gang members.
Due process.
They got due process.
How?
Right?
A federal judge ruled that they did not get due process and ruled that the deportation was illegal. A federal judge,
Charles.
Charles.
It's going to be examined at an appellate level. It's all going to go the way it's supposed to go. We have a president that's doing something on crime. And you talk about how anarchy is coming.
You ain't paying attention to what's going on in America.
You were trying to scare black mothers and brown mothers
because
about
that's
their
what they get ready to
children.
do.
No,
that's exactly.
Absolutely not.
Trump is the same man that when some innocent young black teenage boys were accused of raping a Central Park jogger, he called for their execution. He called for the execution of teenage boys who were innocent of raping a white woman in Central Park.
Well,
that man's mindset has not changed.
In fairness, it does appear that some of them were not guilty of the sexual assault, but they were all out there committing crimes that night. They
But
all
Charles,
agree.
he called for the
all
execution of these young black men raping this white woman, and they had nothing to do with it. Don't tell me that man believes in due process.
40 years ago, he said something you disagree with, but you're talking about anarchy in America. When you look at what happened during the Biden administration, when you looked at this, some people say it's 10 million, a lot of people are saying it's 20 million people came across illegally into this country, were just flooded all over the nation. There was no consequence. Crime, everyone, you hear it, you just like from Brandon Johnson, you hear, oh, crime's down, it was worse in 91, it was worse in 94, right? But no one wants to talk about the violent crime experienced by poor communities of color in big cities is up 60% since Biden took office. People lived in terror, and police departments aren't responding, they're not taking reports, they're not doing things, and damn it, good for Trump for doing something to make those communities safer. I care about poor black communities.
I have no problem with him wanting to make America safer. But what I have a problem with, as a black man born and raised in the black ghettos of America with my entire family, what I do not believe is that he's doing this with us in mind to protect the black community and make us safer, because they ain't never give a damn about black people.
Charles, there are tons of black people that would disagree.
Man, what we have to do in America is make it safer, but do it the right way.
Until Donald Trump became a Republican, until he became a Republican, he was
all the black folks was rolling with him.
They loved him.
But guess what
then he came out and said, hey, I think the Democrats are going crazy.
No.
What did they learn?
No.
Because really, I think they got brainwashed. I think you got brainwashed.
The Democratic Party brainwashed millions of black folks. I'm with you on that.
They got you brainwashed.
But Charles, he going too far with this one. You don't suspend due process.
Fall out.
That's it for the Face-Off on Fox Soul. We'll catch you next time.